Lately, I feel like when I go shopping, everything I'm looking at just feels overpriced.
At what point does working a 9 to 5 become slave work? At what point? Because if you're working every single day and you still can't afford the basic necessities of life, well, then what are you working for?
I make good money, but I don't have money.
I make good money, but I don't have money. Does that make sense?
Lately, I feel like when I go shopping, everything I'm looking at just feels overpriced. And here's what I mean. You know, when you walk into a store and you look at a t shirt or a hoodie or a pair of pants and you ask yourself how much you think it costs before you look at the price tag? I'm holding a hoodie in my hand. I'm like, I'll spend $60 on this. I flip the price tag. It's 95. I'm not paying $95 for this hoodie that I know is worth like $60. You understand what I'm saying? Same thing goes for cars. I'm looking at a car. I'm like, I'd spend like 30K on this. And it's like 47. I'm not spending $50,000 on this car. As a society, we should collectively stop making these overpriced purchases. If we work together on this, they will have no other choice but to drop the prices of everything. So for my people watching this that want to finance $70,000 cars, stop it. You are genuinely making it worse for everybody else. They keep raising the prices because y'all keep signing the paperwork.
He said something a lot of us have thought, but never said out loud. Stop signing the paperwork. Because the truth is, this isn't just about hoodies and car payments. It's about a whole country quietly renegotiating what making it even means. Today, we're sitting down with Americans in every stage of that struggle, and by the end, one voice is going to explain exactly why it feels this way, even when your paycheck looks fine on paper. Let's get into it. If that first clip had you nodding along, hit subscribe right now, and drop a comment telling me the last thing you put back on the shelf because the price just didn't add up. I read every single one, and honestly, that's what keeps this show going. Here's the part that really got my attention, because it's not just regular people saying this anymore. It's the CEOs themselves.
So the CEOs are finally saying what regular people have been saying for a while now. People are broke. And when I say people, I mean the average American consumer. Because apparently Kraft, McDonald's, and Whirlpool are all looking at their sales numbers and going, now wait a damn minute. Where did everybody's money go? The CEO of Kraft basically said lower income consumers are running out of money by the end of the month and dipping into their savings. McDonald's is saying consumers are feeling this heightened anxiety, especially with gas prices and everyday expenses going up. In Whirlpool, people are putting off buying appliances because apparently that $1,500 refrigerator can wait. But what really gets me is you raise the price of groceries, you raise the price of rent, you raise the price of gas, you raise the price for everything from a chicken sandwich to a washing machine. And then everybody is shocked when the consumer says, you know what, I'm going to keep that $40 in my account. And this is why the economy can look good on paper, while regular people feel like they are fighting for their lives financially. People aren't necessarily saying, I don't want your product. They're saying they literally can't afford it right now. And maybe the consumer is just tired of being charged like they got CEO money on a regular person's salary. And honestly, that might be the most important economic warning. Because when people stop buying the things they want, the next question is, what happens when they start struggling to afford the things they actually need? Because at that point, people just aren't cutting back on spending. They're cutting back on living. And that's when companies, policymakers, and everybody else should be bringing the cost of living way down. Actually, it should have never got this out of hand.
This is why the average American is struggling and complaining about wages and the cost of living. Here's the math. There's about 80 million Americans making $50,000 or less. And these are essential jobs that we need to operate this entire country. And they are being underpaid. $50,000 after taxes, 401k, and health insurance is $2,900 a month take-home pay in 2026. Let's say they find an apartment with utilities for $1,500 a month. Let's say that they do a perfect budget of $100 a week for groceries. They don't eat out. They don't do DoorDash. They are perfect when it comes to their food. $400. Let's say they get a used car well below the average for $300 to get them back and forth on their 45-minute commute. Then they have $150 for car insurance, $150 for gas, $150 for cell phone and internet, and $100 for personal care. Leaves them with $150. And they have no student loans and no credit cards. How is somebody in America in 2026 who is financially perfect, zero debt, investing in their 401k, budgeting to the dime, has $150 left over? How do they go on dates? How did they travel? God forbid, what if someone passes away in their family and they have to go travel out of state to the funeral, or a friend is getting married? They would have to put that on a credit card. We have built an economy that if you're perfect, you still have to have a second job in order to make progress. And it's so exhausting to hear people just throw out these things. Would you ever think about cutting your expenses? What are you gonna cut? This person is perfect. The wages have to go up, or we need to cut taxes on the first $100,000 and allow people to keep their money. Our generation got fucked. Hence the reason I wrote the book, Generation Fucked, How Millennials and Gen Zs Were Robbed of the American Dream and How We Can Fix Our Futures. The pre-orders are now available. It comes out July 14th. You can grab a copy of my profile. I go over so many things that happened over the past 50 years that led to this wealth inequality, from stock buybacks to private equity to the national debt to the cost of living crisis, wages, and solutions for policies and independent things that we can all do to reclaim the American dream and make it work for us.
Kraft, McDonald's, and Whirlpool all noticing the exact same thing regular people have been saying for years. And a perfect budget, zero mistakes, zero debt, still landing at $150 a month. If the system works when you're perfect and still leaves you with nothing, was it ever really working? Tell me what you'd cut from that budget, because I genuinely can't find anything. This next part is two different people, on two different days, saying almost the exact same sentence without ever meeting each other.
I make good money, but I don't have money. Like, if I made the same amount that I'm making right now 5 years ago, I would have had really good money. But it feels like we are in the exact same place we were 5 years ago, even though I'm making more money. Like, we can pay all of our bills and not go to collections, but we're not able to save anything. We're able to pay all the extra things for our kids, like sports and dance and stuff like that. But if a medical bill comes in, I can't pay the full amount. I will have to set it up on a payment plan, probably over 12 months. We're no longer poor, and we are not feeling poor because we make good money. But it's like we're at a new level of broke. We were super broke when we first got married, and it's been 11 years and we still kind of feel broke. Does that make sense to anybody?
I make good money, but I don't have money. Does that make sense? I'm at the gas pump right now, and I never look at the cost of gas, but I know that I can't always afford a full tank of gas. My wife and I both have cars, but when the check engine light comes on, it might need to wait a week or two to get the oil changed. If a bill comes in the mail, I cannot pay the full amount, but I can probably set up a payment plan so that it never goes to collections. I'm no longer poor. I make enough money that I am no longer feeling poor. We're never hungry, but it's like I'm just another level of broke. I'm at a convenient level of broke. Does anybody else have this problem?
Making more money than ever, and somehow still stuck at the exact same level. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern with a name now, a convenient level of broke. Does that phrase describe your life too? Say it plainly in the comments. I want to see how many of us are living the same math. If you're still here, that tells me this is more than just a video to you. So make it official, hit subscribe, because the next part is the one people keep telling me changed how they think about their own paycheck. Now let's go back to the promise a lot of us grew up believing, and what actually happened to it.
We were sold a lie. We were told that if we go to college, we get a better education, and we just work really hard, we could have the American dream. That's just not the case anymore. That's not the case anymore. I did that. I got a better education. I got a job that's supposed to be good. I worked hard. And honestly, I'm making the most money I've ever made in my life. And I'm probably the brokest I've ever been. Inflation is out of control. Inflation is the problem. Our wages are not keeping up with the cost of living. Gas is $5 a gallon. Rent is astronomical. Forget buying a fucking house. It's not possible. Groceries, take out a loan. Take out a fucking loan if you want to buy groceries on a monthly basis. And I have a child, so I have to buy groceries on almost a weekly basis, if not, maybe every 2 weeks. It's just bullshit. We can't keep doing things the way that our parents, our grandparents did things. We have to change something. Something has to change.
U.S. credit card debt is hit over $1 trillion. It's at 1.25 trillion now. But back in 2021, it was about 50 billion, something like that. And that's a 60% increase. And that's crazy that in just 5 years, we've crossed over into that $1 trillion threshold. But this is all due to corporate greed. Like, people now, because things are so expensive, have to put basic needs on credit, like groceries, soap, deodorant, toiletries. And it's really concerning because I remember when I was young, I told myself, oh, don't put certain things on credit cards. Like, don't put your groceries, don't put your, toiletries. You need to pay cash for those. But now people don't have a choice. There's no option. It's like that's the only way you can pay for it. And I think this is a pretty clear sign that capitalism is not working in our favor. Like, if it was working, we wouldn't be destitute. Credit card debt wouldn't be through the roof. But the fact that credit card debt is through the roof and people aren't living lavishly should tell you there's a problem. So just to make this clear for people, before the Great Recession happened, people had debt, but they were living lavishly. They had debt because they were over spending. They wanted lavish furniture. They wanted the fanciest cars. But now people have debt because they wanted to eat, because they needed a new couch because theirs broke, because they needed to buy deodorant. Like, people have debt for that. And I don't think enough people are talking about the fact that people in the US before the Great Recession were better off than we are now. That's a scary thought. Like, before the massive crash that occurred, people were doing pretty well and had all the fanciness. Now, people have no fanciness, can barely make it. So if a crash comes, what's left to give up? It's a scary thought, and I am concerned, but y'all have a good night.
Doing everything right, the degree, the job, the hard work, and still the brokest ever. And credit card debt crossing $1 trillion. Not for luxury anymore, for groceries and soap. That's the real warning sign in all of this. What's the one thing you never thought you'd have to put on a card? This next part gets into the psychology of it, why we spend the way we do, and why so many of us stay stuck even when we know better.
Are we really struggling in this economy, or is everything a facade? So from my last video, many of you guys have said that people are just putting everything on their credit cards, and that's why people are spending left and right. That's why we see every place we go to packed to the brim. And I agree with that. However, I want to add to this equation of the fact that people don't care about having a savings account anymore. What we were taught and how we were raised, what your parents did, what your grandparents did with savings account is out the window. That extra $50 left on your paycheck, you're not going to put it in a savings account. 95% of you is going to blow it somewhere at TJ Maxx, buy a video game or buy makeup or whatever, because there's no point in having a savings account anymore. We are coming freshly out of the pandemic where we lost everything. We lost money, savings, people, businesses, and our sanity. Coming out of the pandemic, most people are angry, they're emotional, and yes, swiping that credit card creates this dopamine rush. Also, a lot of you were saying that the migrants that are coming in are being funded to have this lifestyle by having EBT cards and excessive amounts of money. I agree with you guys, totally. I totally think that could also factor in here, but let me just mention that casinos, airports, sports stadiums, Taylor Swift concerts, I mean, these are not migrants attending these venues. Let's just be real here.
I worked in banking for 10 years, and here's what they don't tell our people about why we stay broke. Number one, nobody taught us financial literacy. We watched our parents work their whole lives away and never really taught us about how money actually works. Now, it's not their fault. They were never taught themselves, so they didn't know any better. We're over here thinking that a paycheck is wealth when it actually isn't. 2, we think opportunity is an obstacle. Every time somebody presents a new opportunity to us or a new way to make money outside of a 9 to 5, we say things like, that's a scam, or that won't work for me. But why? Because we don't understand it. Fear actually keeps us stuck. 3, we value security over freedom. We are so terrified of taking a risk. We would rather stay in a job we hate for 40 years than betting on ourselves for 2 years. That is not security. That's a trap. So how do we fix it? 1, we learn how money works. 2, we stop being afraid of what we don't understand. And 3, we take a risk on ourselves, or we learn to take a risk on yourself. Now, I'm teaching this in my free community. Link is in my bio to join. Let's break the cycle together. Let's learn together, and let's thrive.
A generation that came out of the pandemic emotionally exhausted and stopped believing in saving for later. And someone who spent a decade in banking saying plainly, most of us were just never taught how money actually works. That's not a character flaw. That's a gap nobody filled. What's one thing about money you had to teach yourself the hard way? Tell me below. And to bring this all together, here's the part that actually explains why this keeps happening, no matter how hard anyone works.
The middle class isn't disappearing because people stopped working hard. It's disappearing because every basic necessity was converted into a financial extraction system. Housing became a speculative asset class for hedge funds. Healthcare became a corporate subscription model, and higher education became a lifelong debt trap. We don't have a productivity problem. We have an economy that drains every dollar in asset out of the working class before it could ever turn into wealth. And I've talked about this before. This is one of the most meticulous plans that has been executed to almost perfection. And they have been working on it for the better part of 7 decades. Actually 9 if you really want to get technical. But yeah, they drew it up and they've been working on it step by step, and it has been executed to perfection, the actual eradication of the middle class.
Housing, healthcare, and education, 3 things every single person needs, all quietly turned into the most profitable industries in the country. That's not a productivity problem, and it was never a work ethic problem. That's a structure problem, and structures can change when enough people start asking why. If any part of this sounded like your own life, that's exactly why this show exists, us telling each other the truth about what we're actually dealing with. Hit subscribe, share this with somebody who needs to hear they're not alone in this, and comment the one line from this video that hit hardest. I answer as many as I can.